part two of our Thursday show. You might notice something different straight away as we progress. There's no James Gregg this evening. Reason, he's gainfully employed, so good luck to him. I think he did think long and hard about it, but he may well have made the right choice. Not so much stepping in for James, along with Kevin Gage and with Kevin Cookson from Sheffield United, is one of our friends from More of the Monster Truck, Sheffield Wednesday Fanzine, Steve Walmsley. I shan't ask you to do a roundup of events across the area, Steve, but you have been kind enough to bring in some covers from, this isn't the actual
No, that's at the printers. Yeah.
It's at the printers, but he brought us in some exclusive covers, including the front cover and one or two very, very amusing illustrations, and we'll go through those in part two. It's good, isn't it? Sheffield football. There's going to be a little bit of chipping and
Why not?
going on. Yeah, there is. I suspect more from there to you than the other way around. So you better get your replies in.
Well,
it's all
we were there first.
It's all banks. You were there first. It started already. As you may be aware, Kevin Cookson's making his debut this evening. Head of Media. Is that the right title? Head of Media? Sheffield United?
It changes all the time.
Communications Manager?
Press officer. Let's go with press officer.
That's old hat, that, isn't it? And Head of Media sounds a lot better, doesn't it? Better title. But you didn't have a head of media in your day, did you?
I don't think so, no.
Who was doing that then? It wasn't Andy Pack, was it? It was too long ago.
Well, it's probably commercial manager, was it?
Yeah,
Andy Dakin, and then Andy Pack took over, didn't he?
Yeah.
There wasn't one then,
No.
really.
Andy was doing the programme before the Premier League, so unofficially it'd probably been Andy.
It would have probably been Andy, but pretty much Dave Bassett used to sort it out, didn't he? It was pretty much an open house almost. Journalists would turn up and see if who they wanted to speak to was there, and if that person was prepared to speak to them, they spoke to them. It was very, imagine if that was today, Imagine if there was an open house scenario where it couldn't happen, could it?
No, it'd be a little bit of a bun fight, wouldn't it? And would everybody be on message, so to speak?
Well, that's where clubs have kind of taken control of their own media. I'm not aiming that as a criticism. That is the way of the world. Much as I do hark back sometimes to what I feel as some of the good old days, where you could do that remarkably and just kind of turn up. You'd see Dave Bassett in the car park. You got a minute, Dave? And it was as casual as that.
Yeah, I remember that. It used to be, the reporters used to hang around outside the changing areas, didn't they? And literally grabbed you in the car park just and stuck a microphone under your chin and talked to you about the game. Yeah. So that happened a lot.
It's probably the equivalent of a mix zone now, isn't it? But what you're talking about then is, what were you talking about, 3, 4, 5 reporters back then, Gage?
Yeah, that would be a busy game, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I don't think the manager would be happy if there was 50 of them stood there waiting for him right now, would they?
I don't think so, and I think he'd probably be very entitled not to be happy about it, because the demands from for the players and the managers, as we discussed in part one, has increased, has mushroomed. So really, there's got to be some containment of that.
Exactly, and what we try and do as well, give them time to train and play football. That'd be nice as well, wouldn't it?
Oh, that's an idea, isn't it? That's a novel idea, and they certainly have made an impressive start to the season. Can you just tell me about tactics from your point of view, because I'm sure it's not accidental who you put up. Obviously you like to share things out in the dressing room so that one player's not doing it every week, but there would be good reason, I imagine, why it's a certain player a certain week and a different player. You kind of thinking of...
Without a doubt, yeah. So there's a thought process to it. There's a pre-match and there's a post-match, obviously. Post-match is quite easy. A lot of those speak for themselves. For example, last Sunday it was John Lundstrom. The week before it was Billy Sharp. The goalkeeper keeps a clean sheet, then we throw the goalkeeper or one of the defenders up. So post-match it's quite easy, and to be honest, now at the Premier League level, they're deciding as well rather than myself. Pre-match, we look around whether there's any stories attached, if you like. For example, next week I think we're going to get John Egan out to do a little bit of media stuff. Not exactly related to football, but there's a story attached that it's the All-Ireland final the following weekend, and his
father
was a huge Gaelic football player, and the team that his father played for are in the All-Ireland final as well. So there's been a bit of an interest from the Irish media there. So we'll put John up for that. And if players are playing against their former clubs or they've previously scored against the club that we're playing for, there's a little bit of logistics, psychology and that sort of thing, really.
The John Lundstrom story, I'll come to Gage about that in a minute, that remarkable turnaround in his life and the heroics that he deservedly claimed at the weekend. I'll make a little note for myself because so many of these things slip through my head even before I've had a pint of an evening. Steve Walmsley, it's great to see this fanzine back because I'm a fan of it, of this fanzine. As I've said here before, it's great to see humour rather than the kind of vitriol that we've been talking about. You do get some digs in and criticism, but I think when it's done with humour, it becomes a lot more acceptable. Kevin, do you think that as well?
I love the fanzines. I mean, I'm not going to be reading that one, by the way. But I've just contributed to the Blades one, Dem Blades. Their annual, and I've just literally got that through the post this week, and I've read a bit of it already. So I think there's always going to be a place for good fanzines around there. And you're right, the wittier the better for me.
And yet they died out. I mean, this one had died out, isn't it?
We stopped 2005 with the last time we did a paper fanzine of the World of Monstrux, and it was it was just time, and people get jobs and families, and you run out of energy a bit to do it, and then we kind of everything went online, and we started with the online version of the fanzine, and we were kind of comfortable with that. And then it just last season when the All Wednesday film happened, and we just said, shall we kind of do a commemorative fanzine, because we talked to Matt, and we featured in the film because we talked to Matt about the whole kind of fanzine culture. There used to be a really big fanzine culture around the club, and they all drifted off one by one. And we just kind of got back into it. And what's interesting is, we were talking to Paul about this the other day, that social media and stuff, they're supposed to kill these things off. It's actually given life to it because we've got more energy and
social media's
other connections
the thing
out
that it's supposed to kill them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
It's kind of really interesting.
Your previous one obviously sold well. I know there's a charitable cause as well behind it.
We did 2 last season, and so we're back to doing the World of Monstrux so we're doing 3 editions this season, and we're raising money for Bluebellwood Children's Hospice. Okay, well let's have a look at the front page, shall we, on the new fanzines, which will be out for the QPR game, I think, on the 31st. So there we are, after a summer of rearranging the financial furniture, shall we say, at Hillsborough by the owner and chairman, DC's summer rub of the lamp. And then you can see the caption there about the ground sale and DT Taxis. D Taxis. It's one of the companies that Chansiri set up, and it's been advertised at the club for about 2 years. Coming soon, D Taxis, and nobody's ever seen one. And we just thought, he wanted to do the grand sale, and we just thought 3 wishes, and it just kind of worked really.
I suppose if a loophole's there, you go through it. And they're not the only ones, are there?
No, there's 2 other clubs that have done it.
It says there as well, a summer special hair raising edition, and there's a reason. There's a reason for that I wasn't entirely aware of until tonight, about a couple of players in the Sheffield Wednesday team, and we'll see something about that in a minute. Messrs. Bannon and Fletcher, I think.
That's right. There was some tweeting from a hair clinic about the 2 of them have been to some hair clinic treatment in the summer, so we thought we'd have a bit of fun at that.
I missed that tweet. What a pity. What a pity. But we'll look at your take on that, shall we say, in a moment or two. John Lundstrom then, I don't think anybody could have foreseen him starting both games in the Premier League and scoring. It's a great story, isn't it?
It's a super story. He's always been a decent player, hasn't he? We obviously didn't see the best of him because he wasn't actually needed, was he, in the way that our midfield three set up all through the Championship, really. Even when Paul Coots was in there, he wasn't needed because we had Norwood, Fleck, and then we played with a 10 Duffy in the middle there. And when he came in, he did okay without pulling up any trees, but he's obviously got some talent, hasn't he? He's physically strong enough and he's quick enough. And that's a key thing in the Premier League. You've got to be an athlete to compete. You can't just lumber about the pitch anymore, especially in midfield. So he's certainly got the physical attributes, and hopefully now he can push on and become the complete midfielder. I still don't think he's going to be used maybe every single week, because it's going to be horses for courses, I think, in some games. And when we want to maybe attack teams a little bit more, I think we'll play a more creative player as one of the midfield three, but certainly a place for him at the moment while we're just settling down and finding our feet.
That tactical tweak, making the midfield more solid, has the midfield three more solid, has created a role for him. I just wonder, it's very hard to second guess Chris Wilder, because I got it wrong. I thought he might make a change or two for the second game against Crystal Palace. I thought Billy might come in, but no, he kept Callum Robinson, and in fact he's the only new player of the 10 that started so far. He's kept faith in that core group.
Well, I think that's going to change. I mean, I've got no inside knowledge, by the way, but my gut feeling is we can't leave McBurney out for much longer, because I think he's a real talent, and I liked him when I saw him play against us a couple of times. Ripped us apart at Barnsley, scored against us every time it seemed for Swansea, and looked a really good player against us. And in his 2 cameo appearances for Blaze this season, he's done really, really well. And I think he could be a real focal point of our attack, for all this season and hopefully many seasons to come.
I suppose the important thing is that he's seen to earn it and not just given it straight away. He's seen to earn it, which his appearances from the bench are doing. Home to Leicester this weekend, while Sheffield Wednesday go to Preston, 2 very challenging fixtures. Air of optimism. I know you're not surprised at 4 points from 6 so far. This game, hard to call, but maybe unbeaten after 3. What do you think?
I'd like to think so, yeah. I think when the fixtures came out, I can only speak for myself. I looked at Crystal Palace and I said, I can certainly beat Crystal Palace. The point at Bournemouth was always on the cards, maybe a good solid display there. I didn't expect to win. And similarly, I didn't expect to get beat 4-0 either, so I thought that was going to be a tight game. But certainly Crystal Palace and certainly Leicester. Yeah. And yes, Leicester have won the league, 3-4 years ago against all the odds. But they're not fantastic team. They're not a top 6 side, are they? They're a solid mid-table-ish side, and they're the type of teams down at the lane we have to be picking up points against.
Well, it gives you an opportunity to win those games. Obviously, there's an obvious danger man in the opposition who is a Sheffield Wednesday supporter, Mr. Vardy, who I think would be far more of a threat than Mr. Zaha was last Sunday. In terms of directness and wanting it. I don't know. But he was disappointing, wasn't he? Having said that, Basham was brilliant against him, wasn't he?
Basham's usually brilliant against everybody, isn't he?
Yeah.
He seems to find a way, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He finds a way to defend. I'm sure in a foot race, because Zaha's going to lead him dead by about 10 metres, and probably same with Vardy on Saturday. But the key is that we've got. You mentioned him earlier, John Egan. The centre half. We'll be covering round. We've got George Baldock, who's come back this season like a new man. He's been absolutely superb in the first couple of games. And we don't give anybody a chance to get a run at us or get settled on the ball.
I know how much you rate Kieran Freeman ability-wise, but he's not going to get in above Baldock at the moment. No, Baldock's playing.
No, Baldock every time at the moment. I mean, not my issue with George Baldock, because he's done fantastically well, but I've always thought Kieran Freeman had good deliveries and better final ball. But George Baldock's crossing has been absolutely out of this world. He created the goal against Bournemouth, and then against Palace on Saturday, he kept getting around the outside and whipping some brilliant balls across the bowl.
Yeah, particularly first half, I thought.
He's looking at a superb player at the moment. One of top Premiership player.
Yeah, we don't ask you about football so far.
Mr. Cookson. I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Not your area of expertise, but I'm sure you've got opinions.
I've got an opinion on Jamie Vardy. He wasn't good enough for Wednesday, was he? Did they let him go?
Wednesday let him go, yeah. Whether it was ability reasons that he let him go for is another matter, but yeah.
Right, we won't add to your pain on that. But there was the events of the summer weren't welcomed by you or any other Sheffield Wednesday fan, but they're a gift to a fanzine when you have these kind of events. I thought Steve Bruce would get a mention. I'm surprised he's not on the front page, Steve Bruce, but he is. There we are.
Yeah.
The Steve Bruce summer business.
Yeah, we didn't think he justified being on the front page. Have a go, but don't put him on the front page. Yeah. This is all about, do you remember when he said, he was first asked by the media about where all this come from, and he said, I don't know nothing about it, it's just media speculation. And there used to be, and then it turned out that he'd been calling Newcastle, so we just thought, Mark Ashton returned your call, and he's been caught out, I don't know what to say, yeah. So, I said at the time, I could understand the emotions for him about why he wanted to go, and wanted a family and all that. If he'd just been straight about it, then that would have been okay, but he kind of spun all that story about it was nothing to do with him when he'd actually been chasing the job, and then when he'd had the opportunity to rule himself out, he didn't take it, So
he's not the first manager to have done that. He won't be the last, but it didn't feel right the way it all happened. Just did not feel right to me, and very disappointed. However, it's not really affected things on. What you have to say maybe is that he might not be there, but his presence is still being felt in the transfer window, the way the team's playing.
Well,
the fitness as well.
Yeah, that's the point I made. I think he wasn't there very long, but he's sorted out the recruitment infrastructure at the club, because everybody knew since 2016 what had really gone wrong has been the recruitment, and he sorted that out, and he brought Tony Strudwick in to get the fitness sorted out, which has been a problem for the past 2 or 3 years. So he kind of, that's I suppose what really disappointed why he left, really, because he'd put the infrastructure in place and then kind of walked away and left us, but Bullies picked it up.
As we said at the time, I think he's made a huge mistake. I said that before the season, and events so far might bear that out. He could have been covered in glory at Sheffield Wednesday, the way things are progressing. But another thing that you and I are certainly on the same page about is trimming the squad, selling the odd player or two, and not only did 8 leave during the window, but since then I think 2 or 3 have left on loan.
Matt Penny's gone today, yeah.
Which again is the right thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're trimming it down.
Had to get the squad reduced.
Yeah.
Yeah, just too big, too old, too slow.
More Blades and Owls and 2 or 3 more illustrations to come. But no James this week, but we do need to follow up last week's big roundup story, which I don't know if you heard about. This was about Hallam FC and the gross injustice of, for the 2nd year running, leading by 4-0 in an away game, and for that game to be abandoned or postponed because of floodlight failure on the same day in August, 2 successive seasons. And the latest one was at Worsborough Bridge, leading 4-0, abandoned after 53 minutes, floodlight failure. Now, you know, people talk and you always get rumours and suspicions about things like this, but I'm satisfied, and I gather that Hallam are satisfied that there was nothing untoward. This was an electrical failure. Apologies have been received and accepted. But what doesn't seem right is that this game, I'm now told, will have to be replayed. There is no mechanism within the league rulebook, which I think there should be. You know, anything above 2-0 and a game off like this, I don't think it should be replayed. You think of the Battle of Bramall Lane, that was 3-0, that wasn't replayed. West Brom got the win. So this is going to have to be replayed, I gather sooner rather than later. But one suggestion would be, far more common sense, why not play it from 53 minutes, play the remaining 37 minutes, maybe play it behind closed doors or free admission. 37 minutes at 4-0 would be far, far fairer, I think.
It happens on the continent more than over here, doesn't it?
Is that what they do?
I think so.
They'll replay it from when the abandonment
a few examples
was.
of that, yeah.
I think that would be far better. Oh, by the way, well done to Sheffield FC. Last Saturday, I had the pleasure of watching their 2-1 victory over Newcastle Town. It was a good game, and Sheffield well deserved. to win. Well, let's just click. How many have we seen? We've seen 2. Let's have another look at an illustration for more of them. Oh, so there we are. This is what you were talking about with the hair-raising stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't even have to read that out because people can see that on there.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
He
So
was
the
one of the
background
2. Yeah, he was one of the 2 that some hair clinic tweeted that Stephen Fletcher and Barry Bannon had been for these kind of hair treatments in the summer, and so there's another one in there about that Barry Bannon. So we just thought it's got to feature somewhere, and so we saw this photograph and thought that's kind of perfect, really, because with Bullen touching his hair, it just makes it, really, doesn't it? So we
Doesn't seem
just
to have had any effect so far. Is that cruel?
yeah, well, yeah.
You're well qualified.
Maybe, of course. I mean, I take the view when it's gone, Alan, really. But maybe it's kind of slow burner. Maybe it's a slow burner. I don't know.
They went to thank the clinic for putting that out. I mean, I suppose they got permission. Here we go. Snoohoo, explain the background to this one. Okay, the Monty Python song we've all heard, etc.
Yeah, there's a lovely piece of the fanzine written by a guy called David Lincoln, which is all about a loving appreciation of New Year, which is a bit irreverent as well. And right at the end, he refers to him being appearing a bit like a lumberjack. And we just saw this photograph and then thought, the Monty Python song. So it just, which goes, he's a lumberjack and he's okay, you know. And the guy says, I sleep all night and I work all day. And we just thought we won't do the bit about suspenders and bras, because there is a line in the song about the lumberjack, who wears suspenders and a bra. It's just a classic
your
Monty
legal
Python
people on.
song.
Now then,
Absolutely, yeah.
Wilder splash. Frugal Sheffielder on holiday with his family. It's about right at it in Inglemells, yeah?
Yeah. Kevin's not laughing.
He knows his roots.
Yeah.
He knows his roots.
Yeah. I don't think that's so far from the truth.
Yeah, so we just thought it was a great photograph, really, and we just had to use it, and it just came to us. Yeah, that'll be a thing to do. You know, we have so we always just have a bit of a go at Neil Warnock. So Chris Wilder's the new one, to have a go at. You know?
Right. Well, thanks very much for that exclusive peek at all of the monster trucks. That's brilliant, Steve. I hope that it sells really well. It's on sale at the QPR game, and there's a good response to it. And to thank Kevin Gage and Kevin Cookson for coming in. Kevin, just finally, how important is image? And Sheffield United have got this really wholesome family club image, community club, and you know what you do in the community. How important and how difficult is it to maintain that now as a Premier League club? That's
part of the selection when we're talking some of the media sources that are coming to us for interviews, and people coming to us for example, Revel Morrison to talk about his past. We don't want to talk about that. Revel doesn't want to talk about that. That's not part of what we are as a club. What we're trying to do is portray that we are a family club. The manager's words are, we are humble. We want to remain humble.
Inglemells on holiday.
Exactly. As long as there's a golf course there, he'll be fine. And we don't want to get above our station, really. We're a working class club. We're a city centre club. We're enjoying the ride. We're enjoying the Premier League, and just see what it takes us. Yeah, see what it takes you and enjoy it absolutely to the full. And all of us who are watching are doing exactly that. Well, not all of us, not entirely. Not all of us. Steve, thanks so much for coming in again. Good luck with that. Gage, it's always a pleasure to see you. Fantastic to see you coming in again. And a great debut from Mr. Cookson here. A real pleasure. If you missed any of that, it's repeated at 11 o'clock. It's also on my YouTube channel. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon. Bye-bye.